classes, you've always allowed people to meet themselves, like to have a point of view, and to practice. The school is this amazing environment of questions and challenge and encouragement, and you've been a perfect teacher for us because you represent a quality of, for lack of a better word, success. But it's really more about presence, and that it's not about teaching, it's about creating an environment for them to learn about themselves in.
I think one of the most inspirational aspects of school is to have a photographer that inspires. And that's even more important than the technical aspects sometimes.
Yeah.
It's having an inspired teacher that can kind of pass on a style, frame of mind, an attitude. That's so important. And I wanted to ask you, in the early days, did you teach yourself photography, or was there someone that helped you?
Mostly I didn't study photography. I was in fine art and illustration.
Right.
And I would take photographs to draw from, and I would paint them with acrylic and open the oven door and stack the painting in front of the oven and dry it and keep painting, and I could knock out a painting in a day. And they sold, and I wasn't crazy about the pictures. And I realized that I liked the photographs that I took to draw from more than I liked. So it was a transition that just happened.
And your art, do you still have it?
I have one.
And many photographs.
Yeah.
Did they sell well?
They kind of did, and they didn't sell for a lot of money. And they sold, and I wasn't crazy about the pictures.
But you've always had this work ethic. You've always had this.
It was the way I started to see the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically what attracts me about photography and photographers, is how each one sees the world. Like Herbert List and a lot of photographers from the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Vivian Myers, street photographers. I think today are just as hip as the people that are on the street taking the pictures. Mm-hmm. And it was just a way of seeing how each person saw the world. I became very friendly in New York in the 60s with Bruce Weber, who still is one of my really closest friends and inspiration. And I was so impressed with the life that Bruce saw, the hunky, the all-American life. And I thought that's really what I started to realize that you had to put into your photography, is who you were and where you came from and how you saw the world. And Bruce was very influential to me, because he would say, Jancy, he would show me Polaroids I did for pictures, and he said, your pictures are really nice, and that's all I needed to hear. And I think that's what teaching is about, is someone that would tell someone that they had something.
Or that they could do it.
They could do it, yeah. That's why teaching is important to me, is if I can help people. I think one of the great photography teachers in the world was Deanna Freeland, and I remember, and she went from Condé Nast to the Metropolitan Museum, and I never worked for her, but I knew her. And I remember she taught me one thing, dead eye. And dead eye is an eye without a thought.
That's right.
And if you look at anybody, like in shooting celebrities, and you are getting dead eye, I can't stand that. And so what I do is, as soon as someone is listening to me, that's the picture I want, because there's a thought.
Yep.
And I think that was the greatest lesson that I learn.
Well, I think your pictures also give people a feeling about something that they don't experience in their life. And maybe you don't even experience in your life, but it's something
Yeah, but
that
I
you
kind
see.
of, in a funny way, I was looking at that picture of Mary Warren up behind you. And that isn't the way she looks, but that's the way I wanted her to look to me.
Yep.
And I think that's what most of these photographs are, the way I wanted them to look. It's the way I want the world to look. I love reality, and I'm a realist, but I like reality with a touch of class.
A touch of what?
Class. And when you look at her style, and it's reality with just a hair of style, I think that picture of Mila Jovovich over there with the man's suit, just a touch of style. And that is in the editing eye. I think when you're a photographer, you also become your editor, and that's when you look for that, just a hair of style. And that picture around the corner that Mark was facing of the boy in Venice with the cape, and that wasn't posed at all. That's the winter uniform of the Venetian Navy. And it was on the tram to Venice, and I walked out, and just the silhouette of that, and talk about a hint of style. You know, this is just a sailor in a fucking sailor's outfit on the deck of the boat. And I thought, oh, that's so important if somehow that I could myself do and teach students. Every one of these pictures I'm looking at, that picture of Tatiana on the bed over there, and it's just at one point, they sent, the magazine sent me all the way to Paris to shoot Tatiana.
That's right.
And we never left her hotel. I looked at her in that hotel room, and I thought, I'm not going to bring her outside. And to catch that look, and if you can bring out emotion, and emotion, I think, is one of the most important aspects of photography.
It's a narrative in the frame. It's a narrative. It's a story that's very clear and precise. Right. You can see right away that this photographer has a point of view. And, you know, Helmut Newton said one time, if you don't have a point of view, you're only a technician. So a point of view is so important about what is the purpose behind all of these pictures. What am I trying to say? What do they communicate? And it's very specific with your pictures. Each one of them does that.
One would think that you only made these one pictures. Like there's no 100 before or 30 afterwards, and that there's an editing process, because they seem to just exist all by themselves. And at some point during the taking of these pictures, you know something just happened. And somewhere in the editing process, you give yourself over to finding that. Mm-hmm. And then in the printing process, there's another point of making that thing realize on the wall. I have a conversation with a photographer over 20 years. We talk about what everybody looks at a picture once. What makes people look at a picture twice? And what makes a person want to have that picture in their house? And it is that narrative. It's that story that they can connect to. I'm making this very simplistic, but I know that's what happens in your class, that you're linking all of those things, that if you don't go out to make pictures, they won't happen. You can't think your way there. There's this presence that are in these photographs, that about decision, about direction, about care, about trust, about...
Well, I think that it's again a dead-eye And an eye without a thought, and a lot of times you're looking at me right now, there's a thought, that's the picture. But if there is no thought, if you're not looking and listening to me, there's no thought. And it's to find in the edit, that's the surprise that I love, if you can find that moment. And if somebody, I think all of these people, most of these people in my pictures are friends. And yeah, and they, when I look at all of these pictures, there's an emotion, but what it is this is the way I want them to look to me. And that's not the way Renee would, but that's the way I wanted her to look. Yeah.
But you have a connection.
Lost.
You have a connection already.
No. I thought, what am I going to do with her? And I liked the fact that she was kind of a lost girl. But I wanted that picture, and I couldn't tell her I wanted that picture to get, but it's what I think film directors have also, how to get that out of
The look.
somebody. You know, you look at Kazan's films, and how people in hindsight would talk about working with him later, and what he did to get them to be that vulnerable and to have a thought. And when they have a thought, that's when you, any kind of thought, and that is when Mrs. Freeland said the dead-eye thing, and I remember she, in her office at Condé Nast, that she would always lay all the magazines out on the grid on the floor of her office, and it was nothing but photographs. And she'd walk through the office, and she said, that one, there, that one. And she'd edit the whole magazine on the grid, and she looked at, and she was looking for one thing, and that was no dead eye. And you look at a lot of the pictures, you look at all of the covers of American Vogue and Condé Nast magazines that Mrs. Freeland edited, and then when she went to the Met, they all, even if it was a famous model, there was some kind of a thought, like something. And I think that's what photography is very emotional.
You know, I think that's what life is, and I think that in all the years that we've known each other, you've never looked at me with that dead eye, and I've never looked at you that way. It's an experience that is shared between subject and photographer. That's indelible.
It's a great edit tool.
It's indelible because it never goes away. That moment exists then forever, no matter who that person is.
I think most of us have a fear of being vulnerable too, and it's hard to, look beyond that veil and really be natural. And I think that once again goes to trust and have a connection. But getting someone to give you that expression, that natural expression, maybe a little vulnerability, I think that's key as well.
It comes right down to, I mean, it's repetitive, but an eye without a thought.
So it's great that you put ArtCenter in your bio, but it's actually more important for us to have Paul Jasmin with us.
I wish that we'd get that. You know what? The pandemic, I really.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's the fact, the teaching is the one thing in my life that I really love.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it to be inspirational and to finally figure out what photography is to me, and I figured that out through teaching.
You've said a couple of things today that I think are important. One of the things that I've learned today is that you're not really a photographer. Photography is the way you see the world. It's really a lens that you see through into this world that we see here, and that
But I'm looking at you when you're talking, and and the lighting and that shaft of light behind you. And it's the way I want to see you.
Photography chooses you.
It's when you train your eye to look for that,
That's right.
and it's an emotion.
And I think your experiences, because you mentioned your time with Bruce, your time with Vreeland, I think all of those experiences, the culmination of all those experiences, make you the person that you are. And you bring all that every time you pick up a camera. You're bringing all of that experience with you when you look. And I think it seems like a natural thing, but a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people are too worried about that. You have to bring all that with you.
There is a great line from a Broadway show with Ethel Merman, Gypsy. And at the end of the show, she walked out on the stage, the bare stage, and she looked at the audience and she said, you either get it or you don't. And then that was the end of the show. And it's if you get it, and if no matter what you want to do, if you're a writer, an actor, you figure out you have to get it.
And I can't thank you enough for making this time to talk about photography, about education, about galleries, and about the importance of people finding what it is that they do. And I can never thank David enough for the work he's done in this city to make photography be as important and as present and as vital as it really is.
Well, the Klein Gallery is so happy to have this exhibition of Paul's on view.
I just have to thank the both of you, and I think I should shut up. Yeah, to thank the both of you for putting this, and for you giving me the opportunity to teach. But it's that. Thank you both.